Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 53.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Jaison Greene. Jaison is an expert on health and wellness, and he's going to talk a little bit about how diet and exercise, etc., have an impact on our student, and how to deal with the freshman 15, and other important things when it comes to staying healthy while we're also going off to college. Jaison also sent me a great infographic with all kinds of great information about health and wellness. You can find that at Taming the High Cost of College /53. That's where the show notes for this episode are. So let's go ahead and jump into the interview with Jaison. All right, today we're sitting down with Jaison Greene. He is the owner of a company called Clean Fun Living that helps people with health and wellness. Welcome, Jaison.
Hello, how are you today?
I am doing great. Before we jump into Clean Fun Living tips and so forth, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the industry and what you do and why you do it?
Sure, no problem. So I just want to say I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm a holistic health coach based in New York City. I came to health coaching very kind of circuitous route. I was born and raised in Massachusetts, grew up in the 80s there, applied to film school, got into a really good film school in New York City, moved to New York, started my life down the path of becoming a filmmaker. And right before I was about to leave school and move to LA, I actually had an agent interested in one of my short films. I got a call from my sister who lived in Northern California and said that our mom's cancer had come back after 20 years in remission. So I dropped what I was doing and I moved out to California to be closer to my family. And while I was out there, a few things happened. First, I discovered a whole world of holistic health that I'd never heard of before on the East Coast. Things like acupuncture, meditation, detoxification. This was in the early 2000s, and it hadn't really kind of hit the groundswell that it has in our general population back then. And it intrigued me, and it also surprised me to see how well my mom had responded to some of these alternative treatments while she was doing traditional cancer treatment or radiation. However, at the same time that I was out there, the second thing that happened is that my sister was also diagnosed with breast cancer. And so now I had my nuclear family, my mom and my sister, both dealing with a cancer challenge at the same time. It brought my full attention to physical health and wellness in terms of how my own mortality and what I was doing in my diet. You see, before that, I was the type of person that would, eat fettuccine alfredo at 10 o'clock at night and go right to sleep. I ate burgers, I ate fries, I ate chips, I ate ice cream. I ate whatever I want. I didn't think anything about it. I was in my early 30s, and my health didn't really seem to be suffering from it because this is how I always ate my whole entire life. My mom was a fairly good cook. My grandmother did most of the cooking, and we had a protein and meat, a vegetable, and a potato or rice or something like that at our meals. But when I was out with my friends on my own, especially when I was an undergrad, I did kind of get a little crazy with the food. All that to say that after I left California, I came back and I did a lot of research on holistic health and wellness and healed myself of some things that had been going on, like allergies and asthma, and decided that I would enroll formally and get some real training at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition here in New York City. So I did that program, and I did the advanced program afterward, and then started doing consultations with people and landing clients and working with people and a variety of things going on in their own life, and kind of distill this down to helping people define healthy living on their own terms. The model that they teach at Integrative Nutrition very quickly is a model that kind of looks at your life as a holistic being. Primary foods are where we live our lives, our relationships, our career, our education, our spirituality, whether that's organized religion or not. And secondary food is the food that we eat. And we learn about food, obviously, from a very young age from our parents or our caretakers. What we learn growing up about food is usually what we carry with us into adulthood. So for the parents of students who are about to go embark on this journey into college for the first time, leaving home, it's very important, I think, to kind of instill some best practices and get your children to be thinking about their own health and wellness and nutrition, because this is going to lay the foundation for how they're going to move forward as adults going forward.
Right. And I guess, so if I'm a parent and obviously I think most parents do the best they can in providing healthy meals and all that stuff for their children. And if you're a parent of a high school student who's looking at college, they may be gone in the next year or two. So what kind of habits might you want to instill to a high school kid so that when they get out there and launch themselves, maybe some of it'll stick and they'll do it without realizing it, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what's really important is to help your child know themselves better, know how they tick. And what I mean by that is going to college is going to be a stressful event for both the parent and for the child. And helping your child recognize when they're stressed and what signs they give off when they're stressed will be instrumental in helping your child then recognize, oh, hey, this is, I'm behaving this way because I'm stressed out about X, Y, and Z. And therefore, I can then start to do some things that might counteract that. So does your child have mood swings, physical tension? Do they sleep more? Do they sleep less? Do they start binging on foods? Or do they completely withdraw? Those are just a few examples, but, observing your child as you have as a parent, you probably have a pretty good sense of maybe perhaps what their rhythms are in terms of being stressed. Perhaps sitting down and having a conversation with them about, what happens when they're stressed, and then coming up with things that you can do to alleviate that would be really helpful. So if, for example, cravings or something that is really a thing, overeating or even undereating, and in some cases is talking about, how we can, take a step back, perhaps, and, either take a deep breath, do some deep breathing. I do a quick meditation with my clients at the beginning of the session. It really kind of distances them from whatever they were thinking about a moment before, and brings them into this present moment. And really being able to talk about what's happened to them, or whether or not they keep a diary or write down what their feelings are, or they have some kind of, specifically speaking, I think it depends on the parent and the child. And so that's why it's hard for me to give a gross generalization about what to do specifically in terms of when your child is stressed. But acknowledging it is the first step. And I think that when it comes to, particularly food, because that's going to be one of the hugest difference from going from home into college, I think it's important to really consider that what they like to eat now, if they can find something at school where they can actually substitute that would be great. Does that answer your question at all? Or?
Yeah, it does. So
okay, I
guess what we've seen a lot in the popular press as an example is the freshman 15, where and again, I have my theories, but what's your theory as far as, is it legitimate, do you think, first of all? And
I definitely think it's legitimate. I went to college, and I do know that it affects both genders. It seems to disproportionately affect the females more than the men. But that may have to do with our way our society looks at weight more than anything else. The stress of being in a new environment is something to really, really reckon with. And I think it's very important that, if you can start to establish some clear best practices with your child around eating, around what happens when things don't go their way or they get upset about something, that would really go a long way of reminding that student when they're in the situation that, hey, I have another option. So perhaps you can talk about, when you're, in a social situation and it doesn't go well, and then you go back to your room and you're really thinking about, you're feeling a little down and you want to go have some ice cream, or you want to go have that bag of chips or a slice of pizza in order to kind of take your mind off of things. It might be really helpful to think about perhaps getting some exercise, perhaps calling home and talking to somebody, talking to a parent or talking to a friend that you really trust. Writing down your feelings and thinking about that, listening to some really good music. You could take a nap. There's lots of different things that you can do besides eating that, but eating really is what it boils down to. Besides eating, that can kind of help you move past this bad feeling and into a better place.
Right. So then, and I guess I am a parent now, and my oldest is 12, but I'm already seeing that from my perspective, the bad habits that I learned in college and worked fine 5 and 10 and 20 years ago are certainly catching up to me. And I guess I had a roommate, as an example, who, if he was really busy, dinner would be 3 cans of Pepsi and a bag of Fritos, which, at 18 or 20, maybe you can get away with, but it's a habit, I think, that.
Right. And so I think what's really going to help the child understand where the parent is coming from is for the parent to talk about maybe some of their own experiences when they were in college, and talk about how, had they continued doing that, they may not be in the kind of health that they are today. And at a certain point, they had to really address that and make changes. So by doing it younger, it makes it easier, I feel, to continue these good habits. I changed my habits when I was in my mid-30s. It was a long time before I got that boat turned around. And the younger you can get started with some of these best practices, which is having something green at every meal, whether it's a salad or a green vegetable, whether it's raw, steamed, or cooked. That really helps at least get you some basic nutrition into you, regardless of what else you're doing. So if you have something green, even at breakfast, we can talk a little bit more about what's going on with breakfast in particular, because I think that's one of the hardest meals of the day to really get somebody, number one, to eat, and also then to eat on a regular basis, and then eat with some level of nutrition that actually gives you some fuel to get through your day.
As I recall, though, Fruit Loops, one of them is green. Does that count?
I think only in the general foods universe does it count. I have to honestly say that I haven't had cereal, oh my goodness, in a long time. But, cereal and milk, I did that as a child. I think that, if that's something that really makes you feel like, you had a breakfast, and you're going to be able to get to the next meal with that much food, then I say, go for it. But I also think that an apple could certainly help there as a snack. Some kind of piece of fruit, if it's not an apple. I don't know how much people have gotten into kind of this whole idea of having smoothies and stuff like that, but that's a really quick meal, and you can take it to go, so it doesn't really take up a lot of time and doesn't require that much preparation. But yes, some yogurt, that works. Some yogurt, granola, that's always a good combination. Even an energy bar, some kind of bar that isn't just pure sugar. Well, there's lots of brands out there that actually provide some nutrition as a meal replacement is what they're usually used for. But in the instance where somebody's not eating breakfast, I think having a bar before they leave the house, something on their stomach, is going to make a huge difference, because your day is a cumulative effect. And what you do in the morning is going to affect what happens in the afternoon, which is then going to affect what happens in the evening.
Right.
And so these aren't separate events. And there's always this, I don't know if you're familiar with this saying about eating breakfast like a king or a queen, eating lunch like a prince or a princess, and eating dinner like a pauper.
I have heard that, yes.
You have. And what that really means is that having your biggest meal of the day for breakfast does make sense to your body, because you've been fasting all night. And so your body has slowed its metabolism down while you're sleeping, and you haven't put any nutrition in. So when you wake up in the morning, you're breaking that fast, which is the name for breakfast. And so by putting in some really quality foods at the beginning of your day, you set yourself up for the highest amount of energy going throughout the day. You skip breakfast, what you do is you set your body up to then be in a deficit situation. So your metabolism actually slows down, because your body's conserving energy, because it doesn't know when it's going to get any more nutrition. So you slept all night, then you get up and don't eat anything. And so your body will have to borrow basically energy from other parts of your body in order to keep you going until you do get some food into you, if it's 10, 11 o'clock or at noon at lunchtime. What that does is it puts your body in a deficit mode, and those parts of your body that were borrowed from keep a running tab. When you're young, you don't feel it. As you get older and you keep this practice up, that's when your body starts to show signs of wear and tear, and you start to have symptoms and things not functioning right. And it could just be the brain fog at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after you have lunch, or it could be more serious. So instilling these practices of eating breakfast to your children now, especially when they go off to college, will really, I feel like, and talking about the importance of why it's important to have energy, to be able to focus, to do well in school, to be successful, to go on and have a great life. All these things build upon the other.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the dorm life. Most freshmen end up in a dorm, and they also sign up for a meal plan.
Yes.
So
I
what
can
are your
talk
thoughts?
A little bit about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the meal plan is well, it's going to present you with a lot of choice. And some of you may have this in your own high schools, or a version of it in your own high schools, where you have different lines for different types of food. You have the fast food line with the fries and the burgers. You have the vending machines. Then you have usually like the hot meal line. And then you might have a salad bar or something to that effect. Well, in college, it's just going to be either a grander version of that or a more diverse version of basically those tenets. If you can really include, like I said, something green, and whether it's from the cooked meal line or from the salad bar in your meal at its basis, then I feel like whatever happens, you're giving yourself a better shot at being successful overall. Because really, and I just want to stress this, is that because I see this when I work with a lot of the adults that I do work with, is that without your physical health, money, love, success in life is irrelevant, because you can't achieve any of those things without being healthy.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Without having your health. So yeah, if you can really, look at what's easy as perhaps saving that for, 1 day a week where you just eat whatever you want. And so you have a situation where you have, 6 days a week where you're kind of on a regular kind of eating routine. You know what you're going to have for breakfast. You decide from a range of foods, whether it's, boiled eggs, some fruit, some oatmeal, some dairy, some yogurt, or something to that effect for breakfast. So out of those groups, you choose a variety of them and you kind of mix that up. And then for lunch, you have a salad and a piece of lean protein, or you have a sandwich and some, you could have a sandwich and some, whatever the meal plan is offering with your sandwich. You could have, whatever the entree special is for lunch. And then for dinner, you would have sort of a hodgepodge of the same thing. You could just have a salad. You could have some of the hot meal, but maybe on a smaller portion as you're winding down your day. So eating more earlier, and then eating sort of moderately in the middle of the day, and then eating less towards the end of the day, sets your body up to have a much more restful sleep, because it's not spending a lot of time digesting and doing all of these things. And you're winding down with your energy levels anyway towards the end of the day, especially during the week, so that you don't need as much energy toward the end of the day as you do at the beginning of the day. Those all kind of coordinate together. Now, if you choose 1 day a week to be your quote-unquote cheat day, as like, okay, I'm just going to eat what I want, what that does psychologically, in addition to your body physically, is that by allowing yourself that freedom for that 1 day, you might, eat a lot of things that you wouldn't normally eat, and they may not be quote-unquote good for you. However, it gets it out of your system, so that the propensity to keep going back to that during the week is less likely when you know that you have it saved up for this 1 day. That's just one option.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it's an option that, might be really attractive to some people.
Right. So another thing to think about is a lot of colleges now are competing not just in the classroom but they're also competing on their amenities. So if you're comparing colleges, one of the research areas that you might look into is, well, what are the meal plans, and what are the actual meals, and what's available? If I live in this dorm, is the dining hall that has the healthy food all the way across campus?
Right.
Which means, if my intention is good, but it's a 45-minute walk, it's just not going to happen very often.
Well, realistically, that does present a challenge. And I would say that if you have that kind of information at your fingertips, then look into what, is something that's agreeable to the child, and also keeping in mind that at the end of the day, nutrition is the backbone for our health. So if there's a meal plan that offers a healthier option, whether it's organic, whether it's low carb or low fat or vegan or any of these kinds of dietary theories that are floating around out here, I think it's important to see, is this something that their child is very interested in? Number one, because without the interest, it wouldn't matter how close that place is to you.
Right.
You know, if there's no desire on the side of the person who's going to be consuming this food, then it doesn't matter, because, you know, especially when there's no parents around to watch them, they're going to be less likely to do, you know, what they think is right.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that figure out what are your child's favorite foods. What are your child's favorite foods that also happen to be healthy? You know, and see if there's a way to get them to recognize that food or its closest relative in the dining hall, so that they're clear and they're not overwhelmed by the sheer variety of choices that are out there.
Right. And I think if you spend the time at when you're doing the visits and dropping them off and just you ask the questions as a parent, sure, and try and learn about what's available.
And you could certainly make a trip to the dining hall with them, obviously, you know, especially when you're dropping them off for the first time. I don't know how that works now, whether school is actually officially in session when people are getting dropped off at the beginning, especially when you're a freshman, because I do believe that freshmen start a little earlier than the returning students. But if you can, if it's something that can be done, whether or not you come up for a visit mid-semester or towards the end of the semester, at any point in time, investigate what's going on in the dining hall, as opposed to what you read on in the paperwork.
Right, exactly.
You know, see for yourself what's going on and why certain things might be more popular than others. Because, you know, at the end of the day, these are companies who are paying for the right to be in these dining halls. So they want to make their food look as attractive as they possibly can. Right. And so it's very easy for the processed fast food to do that, because they have a long history, which we've all been indoctrinated in this culture by. So they're kind of an easy sell. What's a harder sell is the home cooked food, is the warm cooked food that has, you know, a vegetable, a protein, and probably a complex carbohydrate of some sort, like a potato or starch or a rice or a pasta.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And with that, you know, there are some general guidelines. I do think that there has been an emphasis on staying away from gluten in particular, because of some of the effects that it has on people. But I would say that for somebody who's 18, 19, going into college for the first time, I think it's kind of, unless they've already made that personal decision themselves, I think it's kind of better to give them, you know, free range over all the food groups to see what they actually like. They might be introduced to foods they never had before, going away to college for the first time. And I think it's more important to keep an open mind with this and have an open dialogue and have a two-way street with this conversation, so that it's not just your law as the parent to say you have to do this. It's like, you know, can you meet your child halfway or some of the way, so that they do feel that they have a stake in it as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that was a lot of great information, but
okay.
I guess before we wrap things up, can you give us a couple other real quick tips as far as what parents can do to help their students in the nutrition and wellness area?
Well, I would say, I think I mentioned one of them just briefly earlier, which was having a cheat day. I think that just how it sounds, if you can make an agreement that, you know, they're going to really focus on having the cooked meals and the salads and the healthier foods throughout the week, that they should have some permission to have, you know, kind of just eat whatever they want on a particular, maybe it's one meal a day, maybe it's 2 meals a day, maybe it's the whole day. But consider that as an option in your discussions with them about what they're going to be eating at school. That's number one. Number two is drink water. I know it's something that has been harped upon, but you'd be amazed how quickly the day can get past you without realizing you haven't had any water. And I'm not talking about a water fountain. I'm talking about maybe carrying a portable water bottle with you. You know, I live here in the city, and people every morning when I get on the subway, I'd say, you know, I see at least 5 or 6 people on my subway car with an umbrella and a portable water bottle. It's just kind of part of the urban gear now. And I think that water, you know, having that with you means that you're going to be more likely to drink it than if you have to go and find it.
Right.
So keeping a refillable, a reusable water supply with you, something that's portable, is a great way to keep that water intake going.
Okay.
And the second one is set up a sleep routine. And what this means is, once you know your schedule, once you know what time you have to be in bed, generally what time you have to get up in the morning, set up a ritual where you start turning off the devices, whether that be a television, phone, computer, whether or not there's something, you have like your favorite sleep pajamas, or you turn down your bed, or you wash your face, brush your teeth, get in bed, say your prayers, whatever you do before you go to bed at home, finding a way to transfer what is workable into your dorm roommate, most likely, situation, where you're going to have your area, but you won't have your own private space necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having something where you establish a few things that you do on a regular basis before you go to bed will ensure that you'll actually have a better night's sleep.
Right. Okay. Well, if people want to learn more about what you do and how can they get in contact with you? Do you have websites, email, whatever?
I do. I have a website. It's www.cleanfunliving.com. It's spelled exactly how it sounds, but I'll spell it for you. It's CLEANFUNLIVING.com. There will be, I'm going to put together a guide for healthy eating for students and parents. So it will be available on my website when you go to it.
All right. And we will put all the links to that in the show notes as well at Taming the High Cost of College. It was great talking with you, Jaison, and I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And again, people want to learn more, they certainly can track you down and hit your website. All right, that wraps up our interview with Jaison. Again, show notes available at Taming the High Cost of College /53 for the 53rd episode. As always, I would appreciate honest reviews in iTunes. And if you can share this with anybody that you know that's dealing with planning and preparing for college, it would be greatly appreciated. That's all, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.